Good morning for those that are attending with us. This is the Colorado Energy and Carbon Management Commission. It is our second day of a business agenda this week. It is Thursday, December 14th at 9 a.m. We will start with a roll call.
Thank you. Commissioner Ackerman,
Here.
Commissioner Cross,
Present.
Commissioner McGowan,
Here.
Commissioner Mesner,
Here.
Commissioner Oath, Commissioner Ray,
Here.
Commissioner Robbins.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 6 of 7 commissioners present.
Very good. Good to see everybody. Had a long day yesterday and have an agenda before us today. Would like to note a couple of changes. First, docket 2301-00033, the extraction oil and gas development plan entitled Washington OGDP. That has been continued off the docket today at the applicant's request. It is continued to no particular date. So we will see that in the future. We will not take up that docket this morning. We do have a Verdad docket this morning, but before we get to that, I want to reopen a docket that we heard yesterday, docket 2305-00185. This is the Red Hawk Petroleum LLC OGDP. Good morning, Ms. Jost, and good morning, Director Murphy. I understand that there have been some discussions about the date relative to when this was continued. Would first like to recognize Director Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners, and thank you, Red Hawk, for working with me last night and again this morning. I agree with all of the principles that were decided yesterday regarding Red Hawk, but two things are a little bit tricky for staff to navigate, and I wanted to take the time to make sure I was clear on those pieces with staff and then with Red Hawk, which I've been able to accomplish overnight. And so what staff would request is a couple of things. First, if we could move the hearing to the 24th, I think the 10th would be very doable in most situations, but we have a lot of intervening holidays and pre-scheduled travel. And so I want to make sure that we actually have the time to address the concerns. And so that'd be my first request. My second request is that I think that AEG Mercer was wise to request that it be updated in the 2A, but that creates a lot of internal document management that can be really challenging. And so what I am requesting is that Red Hawk submit their proposed changes and updates into the e-filing system so that folks can they'll be publicly available, they'll be transparent. Commissioners can look at them and cross-reference them with what's being proposed, and then as part of the final order, if the commission does decide to approve the permit, that staff would work with Red Hawk to get it cleaned up and make sure that the final 2A reflected the commission's decision. It's a little bit easier for us to manage in that way, and with the additional time, we'd be able to take a look at what comes out of that consultation and provide some input, so we'd be ready to hit the ground running if, again, the commission makes a decision. So those are my two requests. Again, these are both very staff driven. I'm sorry I wasn't, quick on my feet yesterday to be able to do them, but hopefully there's some tolerance for us trying to find the right solution. And I have been in touch with Jamie, or Ms. Jost would welcome her comments as well as is appropriate, Chair.
Very good. Ms. Jost?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners and Director Murphy. We're in full agreement. I had the ability to speak with my client team last night after I talked to Director Murphy, and we really like the concept of uploading a document that proposes what the modifications would be to the Form 2A, 2B, as well as any corresponding plans. And then, if approved, those would be translated over to the permits through the normal permitting process. So I agree. I think it's a very nice use of not only staff resources, but that gives us time to also work with Ms. Sorensen from CDPHE. We've reached out for the meeting, I should say. And so we're well on our way to getting this information. We also really appreciate the January 24th date. We have no problems with that. We think that additional time is better used for everyone. So thank you.
All right. Thank you both, and appreciate everybody working together. These matters are not easy at times, and we're acting kind of in the flow of the moment. So with these considered next steps, I would entertain, or I would just move that we move the continued matter on docket 2305-00185 to January 24th. And AG Mercer, do I need to do anything with the 2A piece?
That would probably be helpful just because we did mention it yesterday in the motion. So the motion today would be for a continuance to the 24th and to direct the applicant to file their changes via e-filing prior to hearing, and for staff and the applicant to clean up the 2A after hearing.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. How about this? So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Director Murphy. Thank you, Ms. Jost. Appreciate both of your attention to that matter. And we look forward to the continued work on that and hearing that again after the first of the year on January 24th. With that, we're going to move to the remaining matter on our docket this morning, noting that the Washington matter was continued. That leaves us with docket 2306-00224. This is an oil and gas development plan by the applicant Verdad Resources. Believe that the way we have it set up, we would hear from Weld County, the relevant local government first. So if we could bring either Ms. Holliday or Mr. Maxey to the hearing. Oh, good morning, Ms. Holliday. Nice to see you. We would recognize you on this docket, the Speed Goat Fed 3432-3435 OGDP.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair Robbins. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this morning about Weld County's process regarding the Verdad Resources Speed Goat Fed Oil and Gas Development Plan. Weld County's Oil and Gas Energy Department held a pre-application meeting for the Speed Goat Fed location on February 8th of 2023, at which time several alternative sites were discussed. Attendees included Weld County staff, Verdad Resources, and the ECMC staff. CPW, CDPHE, and the BLM were invited but did not attend. All parties did receive a copy of the meeting minutes. The 1041 WOGLA application was received on June 30th of 2023. The application included the analysis of 2 alternative sites, which were reviewed and discussed in detail with both staff and the hearing officer. There are no building units within the 1041 WOGLA zone, and Weld County did not receive any public comment on this application nor request to apply for intervention into our hearing process. The 1041 WOGLA hearing was held on September the 21st of 2023, and the hearing officer considered testimony at the hearing and ultimately approved the permit. The final order was recorded with the Weld County Clerk and Recorder on September 29th of 2023 and published in the Greeley Tribune on October the 4th of 2023, creating a vested property right. 2A comments were submitted to the ECMC on October 26th of 2023 and are included in the director's recommendation. Weld County agrees with the director's recommendation and supports approval of this permit. That's all the comments I have prepared for you today. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions for Ms. Holliday? All right, seeing no questions, we thank you for participating with us this morning. We appreciate Weld County's participation in this OGDP. We now would recognize the attorney for the applicant, Mr. Pershala.
Good morning, and I unfortunately am having difficulty with my video. It is working on other applications, but is not seeming to work on my Zoom. I apologize. I can try to sort that out, or if you don't mind, I can just proceed without video.
It's fine to proceed without video if it doesn't seem to be working. Pursuant to normal procedures, we would ask that you perhaps make sure we elevate your relevant witnesses, and we'll go ahead and get them sworn in to begin with.
Excellent. Yes, I see Mr. Cognetti is present, Mr. Berghorn, and Miss Sheever is present as well. If we could elevate them for swearing in, that'd be great.
Very good. They have visualized themselves. AAG Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, panelists. I'll just ask you one at a time to raise your right hand, state your name, and that you swear to tell the truth. I'll begin with Mr. Cognetti.
My name is Mike Cognetti. I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you. Ms. Schreiber.
My name is Allison Cheeber, and I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you. Mr. Berghorn.
Jeff Berghorn. I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Pashala, we've got your witnesses sworn in. If you would like to proceed with your note to us, go ahead.
I will. Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Director Murphy, and staff. As you know, my name is Joe Pershala with Wellborn, Sullivan, Mecking, Tooley, and today I'm here to present Verdad Resources Speed Goat Fed 3432-3435 Oil and Gas Development Plan. First, I'd like to thank staff for their work on this application and also thank Ms. Holliday for her work and comments in support of the Speed Goat OGDP. Presenting today for Verdad is Mike Cognetti, Director of EHS&R for Verdad. We also have Verdad representatives available for questions, Allison Schieber, a Senior Regulatory Analyst, and Mr. Jeff Berghorn, Land Manager for Verdad. Verdad's application requests the Commission approve an oil and gas development plan that covers approximately 2,560 acres within Township 9 North, Range 58 West in Weld County, Colorado. The proposed development is planned from one existing oil and gas location that would be modified and renamed to allow for a total of 18 new horizontal wells. The location is within the mineral development area and is located on fee surface in a rural part of Weld County. As you heard from Ms. Holliday, Weld County is the relevant local government which approved the Speed Goat Fed pad at 1041 WOGLA 23-0016. There are no proximate local governments. Verdad owns leasehold covering more than 45% of the mineral interests that are within the drilling and spacing unit and therefore has the right to develop it. The spacing unit does contain fee and federal minerals. Verdad is requesting approval of a companion Rule 305 drilling and spacing unit application, which requests the Commission establish an approximate 2,560 acre drilling and spacing unit for sections 32, 33, 34, and 35, Township 9 North, Range 58 West, and approve a total of 18 horizontal wells within the unit. The application further requests that certain existing spacing units that cover a portion of the application lands remain in place for so long as the existing horizontal wells in those units produce oil and gas. When those wells are at the end of their life and plugged and abandoned, which is actually part of this proposal to have these wells plugged and abandoned, that those wells, those units will automatically vacate. The proposed 2,560 acre drilling and spacing unit, as I mentioned, contains federal minerals. Verdad has submitted to the Bureau of Land Management federal applications for permits to drill, and will also submit a communitization agreement to the BLM prior to first production of the initial new unit well. Verdad maintains that the proposed spacing unit and proposed unit boundary setbacks satisfy Rule 305B and the Conservation Act, including the protection of correlative rights. With regard to the location, the unit would be developed from the Speed Goat Fed pad. This pad, as I mentioned, is an existing location. Is currently named the Bringleson Ranch 3441-9-58 pad, which was originally approved and has existing 4 horizontal wells that are currently producing. This pad will be modified to accommodate the 18 new horizontal wells and be renamed the Speed Goat Fed pad. The 4 existing wells on the pad would be plugged and abandoned upon commencement of new operations. The pad is located on fee surface, and Verdad has a surface use agreement with that surface owner. The pad will develop the drilling and spacing unit with 9 wells drilled east to west across, and then 9 wells drilled west to east as well. In addition, Verdad will close and reclaim 3 locations and plug and abandon another 7 horizontal wells within the application lands. The Speed Goat fed pad does not meet any of the Rule 304 B2B criteria, and therefore an alternative location analysis is not required. While not required, Verdad did evaluate 2 other potential locations to avoid impacts to public health, safety, and welfare, the environment, and wildlife resources. Verdad selected the Speed Goat fed pad as the best of the alternatives because it repurposes an existing oil and gas location consistent with Rules 603D and 603E. There are no receptors within 2,000 feet. It is sited outside high priority habitat. There's no water resource impacts, and it's sited with the agreement of surface owner. The Commission's review is therefore pursuant to Rule 301A. As you will hear, Verdad will deploy a suite of best management practices to this location that satisfy Rule 301A, such that the proposed operations will protect and minimize adverse impacts to public health, safety, welfare, and the environment, and protect against adverse environmental impacts to air, water, soil, and biological resources. Just some highlights of the best management practices would be a drilling rig powered by electric natural gas generators with battery backup, completions powered by off-location line power or on-site natural gas-powered engines, electrified production equipment, 3-phase pipeline takeaway and tank light facility design, tank vapor recovery design, continuous emissions monitoring, and with respect to wildlife location, this location is sited outside of high priority habitat, and CPW did not identify any concerns with this location. That said, Verdad will be conducting a wildlife survey for raptor nest and burrowing owls if there's construction occurring between December 31st and July 31st. Verdad is given proper notice pursuant to Rules 504A and 303E1, and no petitions or interventions were received. On November 27th, 2023, the director issued a director recommendation. The recommendation states that the director found that the application complies with all ECMC rules and recommends conditional approval, which is the staff recommended the following condition of approval: that prior to placing the MLVT on separate disturbance, an amended OGDP with a new Form 2A must be submitted and approved. Verdad's site plan does intend to locate the MLVT within the disturbed area, but nonetheless, Verdad understands that this is a condition of approval that is acceptable for the 2A. Finally, I would request that the Commission approve this application as it is consistent with Rule 604B1 and Rule 301A. It is a thoughtfully selected location that does repurpose an existing location and disturbance, prioritizes avoidance of adverse impacts, will allow for the closing and reclaiming of 3 other locations, allow for the plugging of 11 horizontal wells, and employs a suite of best management practices that will protect, minimize, and mitigate adverse impacts to public health, safety, welfare, and the environment. And with that, I respectfully request that Commission adopt the director's recommendation and approve this application. And with that, I would turn it over to Mr. Cognetti, who will begin Verdad's presentation.
All right. Can everyone hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. As Mr. Prashal said, I'm Mike Cognetti, Director of Environmental Health, Safety, and Regulatory for Verdad Resources. Thank you for taking the time this morning to review our proposed location, the Speed Goat Fed 3432, 3435. This location is in northern Weld County, approximately 7 miles north of the town of New Raymer. This first slide is zoomed out to view the area around the location. There are a few things to point out on this map. The red rectangle shows the unit to be developed. The Speed Goat location is shown on the top right of the unit. The black circle designates a 2.5 mile radius around the location. High priority habitats are shown in yellow shading. The closest high priority habitats are at 2 miles to the northeast and southwest. Residential buildings are the black diamonds. The closest is the surface owner at over 4,000 feet to the west. We will be accessing the location from the south via Weld County Road 127 and heading east on non-maintained Weld County Road 100, which is an existing access road to the existing location. As listed on the left of the slide, the location does not meet any alternative location analysis criteria, which we think makes it a great location. The slide shows the development plan for the Speedgoat location. The wells on this location will develop a 4-mile unit. Looking at the unit map, the Speedgoat location and the surface holes are shown on the northeast of section 34. The existing wells within the unit are shown on the map here, going north to south across the unit. All 11 of these existing wells are producing and will all be plugged and abandoned as part of this development plan. We plan to drill 18 new wells to develop the unit. 9 of the wells will be 1.5-mile laterals drilled west to east, shown on the map in blue. 9 wells will be 2.5-mile laterals drilled east to west, shown on the map in green. There are federal minerals included in the development in sections 33 and 35. The federal well permit applications are in process, and this is a fee-fed location. As mentioned in the first slide, the Speedgoat location does not meet the criteria that requires an alternative location analysis. But we wanted to let you know that we have considered 4 location options for this development. We reviewed and analyzed all the existing locations in the proposed unit. The location we have chosen and are proposing for the Speedgoat development is the best option compared to the other 3. The reason that we think it is the best location, well, it's simply furthest away from residential building units and high priority habitats. In addition to the distance from receptors, the proposed location is also sited in a valley with natural sound, light, and visual barriers. On this map, you can see the 3 alternative locations that are now to be decommissioned and reclaimed. One location is in the northwest quarter of section 34, surrounded with a purple rectangle. One location is in the northwest quarter of section 33, also surrounded with a purple rectangle. And one location is in the southeast quarter of section 32, surrounded with a green rectangle. You can also see the 11 wells to be plugged and abandoned, and on this map they're shown with gray lines. Zooming in closer here, you can see out to a 2,000-foot buffer from the proposed location. The black dotted line furthest out from the location is the 2,000-foot buffer. This slide further demonstrates why we chose this location to avoid impacts to the identified receptors. The light blue outline is the proposed location disturbance of 11.98 acres. 4 acres of that is existing pad. This existing location will develop 2,560 acres from one location. The location is not in or close to high priority habitats, and the nearest residential building unit is over 4,000 feet away. This location has existing gas sales line and is near oil and produced water pipeline connections. The surface owner has signed an amended SUA and approves of the further development of this location. This slide shows the planned facility layout for the Speedgoat. It was designed to minimize and mitigate impacts. Some of these design features are the production equipment and wellheads are sited away from the nearest drainage. The siting in a valley provides a natural light and sound barrier. The existing facility will be decommissioned and replaced with a new facility. The design of this new facility will allow us to minimize emissions. This will be a tank light facility with oil, gas, and water pipeline takeaway, minimizing tank emissions as well as truck traffic and emissions. Water tanks on site will be used for holding water prior to sending it down the pipeline. 4 water tanks were determined necessary for the operational flexibility and certainty for producing 18 wells. The 2 oil tanks were determined to be needed for operational flexibility and maintenance purposes. The facility will also be equipped with electric VRU and gas lift compressor engines, eliminating permanent engine emissions on the location. The next couple slides list many of the best management practices we will employ on the Speed Goat location. I will highlight a few here. We recently contracted with an electrified hydraulic fracturing fleet. These frac pumps are powered by electricity generated by offsite and/or on-site natural gas powered generators. As I mentioned in the previous slide, our facility design will employ electric VRU and gas lift compressor engines. Also mentioned before, but important, the location siting is far away from RBUs and HPHs and sits in a valley surrounded by natural sound, light, and visual barriers. Fresh water will be piped to the location, and all products will be piped away from location to minimize truck traffic and emissions. A portion of the water used for completions will be recycled water. This location is designed for stormwater detention per Weld County requirements. Verdad will employ a robust inspection schedule that will ensure that stormwater issues, gas or liquid leaks, safety issues, or any other compliance problem will be discovered quickly. The facility will also have continuous SCADA monitoring with alarms and remote shutdown capability. The benefits of this development make it a great location. We'll be plugging and abandoning 11 wells. We will be decommissioning and removing from 4 facilities consisting of a combined 30 oil tanks, 10 water tanks, 3 gas lift compressor engines, and eliminating over 900 tanker truck trips and 1,095 pumper truck visits per year. And as a result of this development plan, 3 locations will be reclaimed. Removing these 4 facilities with 11 wells and replacing them with the new Speed Goat facility will have a net reduction in air emissions. The new facility emissions are estimated to be 4.2 tons per year of NOx from a 9 ton per year previous total, 4.6 tons per year of CO from a 14 ton per year previous total, and 13.6 tons per year of VOC from a 30 ton per year from a previous total. When these facilities are decommissioned and the wells are P&A'd, Verdad will submit these emission reductions related to the Speed Goat development to ECMC staff. The permitting process for the Speed Goat FED began in February of this year with the Weld County pre-application meeting, which was attended by representatives from Verdad, Weld County, ECMC, and BLM. CPW did not attend but was consulted, and they sent notes on the location, which have been incorporated into this development plan. We received landowner agreement in March and submitted WOGLA and OGDP applications at the end of June. The WOGLA was submitted in September, and we received the director's recommendation for approval on November 27th, which brings us to the OGDP hearing today. If approved, the Speed Goat operational timeline will begin soon. We will file permit applications early next year and build the pad in the first quarter of 2024 as well. When the Speed Goat APDs are approved, we will start drilling in Q2 of 2024 and follow with completions in Q3 and Q4 and production coming on in early 2025. Given the more than adequate distance the Speed Goat location is from potential receptors, the minimized disturbance of using an existing pad, the number of wells, facilities, and locations to be decommissioned, reclaimed, and abandoned, the large acreage of minerals we will develop from just one pad, the low emission profile design of the facility, and other BMPs to be employed. We conclude that the proposed speed goat development location has been sited, designed, and planned to successfully protect and minimize adverse impacts to public health, safety, welfare, the environment, and wildlife resources. That concludes the presentation for our proposed speed goat fed 3432, 3435 location. Thank you again for your time this morning and your review of our application. I have Allison Schieber, Senior Regulatory Analyst, and Jeff Berghorn, Land Manager, here also. Please let us know what questions you have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cognetti, for the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Pashala. We now have the panel before us, and they are open for questions. If you want to download the screenshot, that way I can see everybody a little bit better, that would be great. And commissioners, questions? Commissioner McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. And I'm really appreciative of the additional information about which wells we're going to get plugged and the benefits from doing so. So thanks for doing that. I'm wondering if you all could talk a little bit about the conversation with staff about the MLVTs and their location and the proposed condition of approval.
Certainly. The old location had an associated water, freshwater pit that was reclaimed previously. It was still on the old 2A. We were just curious if we could use that to place an MLVT. Since then, I guess there was a lot of communication back and forth with staff about was that feasible, what we would have to do if we wanted to use something offsite. It wasn't a necessary thing. We were just looking as a contingency. But talking with our water provider and our operations folks, it is not necessary. We'll be fine to operate on site with that MLVT on the disturbance that we're discussing here today. So we fully accept the COA, no problem.
Further questions? Commissioner Messner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the applicant for a thorough presentation and a thorough application. I did have a few questions just so I make sure that I understand what you're proposing here, because some of the verbiage you're using is a little different. But in the equipment that's being proposed here, I mean, I think you're using a little different verbiage, but it's essentially Tier 2 natural gas engines with battery backup for drilling and completions. Is that right? Because I understand that the natural gas is generating electricity to power certain things, but it wasn't clear to me whether that is the same as a natural gas engine that is utilized in those activities, which also generates electricity, or whether it's the actual, whether these are electrical, and it doesn't matter. I'm just trying to understand whether these are electric units that are just being powered by electric generators. Does that make sense? Because the verbiage is slightly different than I'm used to seeing.
Sounds like you've got it right. So the word I use is actually the verbiage I use is something that's being proposed in a rulemaking at CDPHE as we speak.
Okay.
The electrified hydraulic fracturing fleet. And in that definition, I just want to be consistent across agencies with what we're wording. But the definition of that in that rulemaking is going to be essentially what you described, a electric pump that can be powered by either offsite grid or offsite generator or on-site natural gas generator. So it is a natural gas pump on site that we're mainly going to be, or sorry, a natural gas generator on site powering the electric pumps that we'll be using.
Okay.
The fleet also has the capability to, while using the generator on site, tie into grid power to supplement. And so moving forward, we're planning to try and accelerate our electrical connections on site to help supplement that. But it's a very new system for us, so we're kind of moving slowly with it and making sure everything's safe and operationally feasible before we commit to anything like bringing grid power in.
And so if there was grid power in this scenario, and I might be misreading this, I think that there's some batteries that are involved with this as well, or am I making that up?
There are.
Yeah.
As well as
So
on
do
our
you utilize the
drilling
grid
rig.
power that's there to trickle charge the batteries, or are the batteries getting trickle charged by the generators?
It's a very complicated system, and I'm not an expert on it. I apologize. I can get back to you with that if you'd like, though.
No, it's all right. I mean, I've heard it both ways. I was just curious about kind of what you were contemplating here, so I'm trying to better understand it.
I think the bulk of the power will be supplied by the natural gas generators on site.
And then there's oil, gas, produced water takeaway. That's what I'm understanding, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the D822 drilling fluid, that's a class 2 drilling fluid, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Those are the only questions I had. Thank you.
Okay.
Other questions for the panel? One question, in your presentation today, you indicated that you would remove 30 oil tanks from other locations, but looking at your Form 2B, it says 37. Can you just explain that discrepancy?
Have to look at everything again. Not sure where that discrepancy is from. Essentially, we're removing all the tanks from the existing location, minus the 2 we're gonna keep there, and all the tanks from the 3 pads that we're decommissioning the facilities and reclaiming. I think it was just, that might have been an error in the count, looking at all the different inventories on site, and it may be an inventory versus 2A number.
All right, but we can take you at your word in terms of what you just mentioned. That's what's being removed, irrespective of what the actual count may be.
Yes, there will be no tanks remaining at any of the 3 reclaimed sites that we're discussing, and we're just going to have 2 at the Speedgoat location. So every other tank involved at those locations will be removed.
Okay. Further questions for the panel? Seeing none, moving into deliberations, commissioners. Commissioner Messner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to start. So I think I'll start by just saying that I think that the level of detail, the commitments, the clarity in what equipment and technology is being utilized, the well thought out analysis of the location, and particularly ensuring that the location is accessible to 3-phase takeaway, I think is really to be commended in this particular situation. There's no ALAs required, there's no RBUs, there's no high priority habitat, utilization of an existing pad. There's no sensitive water resources that are in the vicinity. I think that's certainly a big deal as well. I appreciate that they contemplated the utilization of the pad to ensure that a lot of the equipment that's being utilized on site is away from natural drainage features on the site, and that there's existing road access. Understanding in this particular situation, the applicant is clearly indicating the equipment and technology that they intend to use. That includes, natural gas engines for both drilling and completions, with a battery backup, with the concept of potentially being able to tie into grid power for either trickle charging the batteries or for offsetting some of the necessary or the need for some utilization of the generators that are being utilized on site. You know, I think the utilization of class 2 drilling mud, you know, at times in different applications can be, you know, create more emissions associated with it. But I think what really, for me, sets this application apart is that it also has the offsets that are associated with it, including the closing of 3 locations, the plugging and abandonment of 11 wells, 30 oil tanks being removed, 5 acres being reclaimed. And I also appreciate the utilization of electric VRUs and gas lift compressor engines. You know, I think that's also a potential significant source of emissions in these. And so I think this is a really good application. I think it's a well thought out application. And I think that I'm very appreciative of what's being proposed here and how it's, I mean, this isn't all the absolute best technologies that are available out there, but it's a good example of the utilizing technologies and committing to certain technologies and developing a plan around those technologies and utilizing the opportunity for offsets, including closing locations, plugging and abandoning wells, and removal of tanks, and reclaiming acres to package an application that I think really is a protective application. And so I will be voting in support of this application.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate the thoughts. A good summary. I'm in agreement with you as well. Other deliberative thoughts from commissioners? Anybody care to make a motion? Commissioner Cross.
I'd move for approval of the application, and just say that I'm in agreement with Commissioner Messner.
Second, and I also agree.
Motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the application signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much to the panel. Thank you to staff for the work here. This is indicative of good protective development within the state of Colorado based upon our rules. Appreciate it. With that, commissioners, we have concluded 2 days of hearings and we have no further business before us. I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Two motions in 2 seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much. We've got 2 days of hearings next week, starting on, I believe, the 20th. We'll see everybody then.